It's great to have you join us as we continue to walk through Mark's Gospel. What do you think Jesus was like? Did he ever get angry? How would you view him if he did? The section of Mark's Gospel we're going to look at today is chapter 11 and verses 12 to 26. Again, I'd encourage you, if you're able, to read the passage for yourself. To help with this, there is a link to an online Bible in the video description. At this point in Mark's Gospel, we have two seemingly unrelated stories that both teach us the same thing. The first involves Jesus and a fig tree. The day before, a Sunday, Jesus had entered Jerusalem riding on a donkey and being cheered by the crowds. Mark then tells us he left the city and he's now returning on the Monday morning. As Jesus goes along the road, he sees a fig tree and it's in full leaf. Wondering if there was any fruit, Jesus goes over to the tree to have a look. Mark tells us what happened next. When he reached it, he found nothing but leaves, because it was not the season for figs. Then he said to the tree, "May no one ever eat fruit from you again." Now, does that sound strange to you? It certainly sounds strange to me, seeing such an outburst from Jesus. I mean, if I was in the supermarket and saw a toddler having a tantrum because their parent wouldn't let them have a chocolate bar, I might expect something like this. But really? From Jesus? Or there might be occasions where I've tried to grow some carrots or parsnips. Everything's looked great. The leaves have been really green and healthy. But then I've dug them up and there's nothing there. It's frustrating and annoying, and I might have spoken some words of anger. But this is Jesus. This is someone the Bible says is perfect and never does anything wrong. So what's going on here? Well, Jesus is acting out a picture to explain what happens next. When Jesus gets to Jerusalem, he goes to the temple. This was the center of religion in Jewish life. It was the place where the people worshipped God. It was the place of sacrifices and prayer. People would travel from all over the nation to be at the temple for the times of special religious festivals. What do you think Jesus would find as he walked through the gates? You'd think maybe people seeking God, or maybe people praying and learning about him. But he didn't. The Bible tells us that the temple had been turned into a marketplace. The outer court had been filled with stalls where people sold animals for sacrifices. We're also told that there were booths where money changers did their business. You see, in order to purchase things in a temple, you had to use temple currency. So people would come and change their Roman money for temple money, and then go on and buy the animals and other things. In verse 17, Jesus calls this a den of robbers. So I think from that, we are safe to assume that there was a fair bit of ripping off going on. Prices would have been hiked up and commission charged on every transaction. Faced with this, what would Jesus do? Well, Mark tells us in verses 15 and 16. On reaching Jerusalem, Jesus entered the temple courts and began driving out those who were buying and selling there. He overturned the tables of the money changers and the benches of those selling doves, and would not allow anyone to carry merchandise through the temple courts. I wonder, what picture do you have in your mind as you hear those words? Remember, Jesus is one man against many. There must have been something about him, something that made people think, we don't want to mess with this one. Jesus explains himself in verse 17. Is it not written, "My house will be called a house of prayer for all nations," but you have made it a den of robbers? When Jesus went into the temple, he was disappointed by what he saw, just like he was with the tree. There wasn't the religion that should have been there. He didn't find worshippers seeking to know and follow God. Instead, he found a people interested in themselves and seeking their own ends. How did he respond? In the same way as he responded to the tree, with righteous anger and judgment. In the temple at the time were the chief priests and the teachers of the law. They were not pleased with what had happened. Mark tells us that they began looking for a way to kill him, for they feared him, because the whole crowd was amazed at his teaching. A few days later, they would have their wish, Jesus on the cross. That's where we're going. But for now, let me ask you this question. What do these accounts mean to us? Well, I think there's a challenge here. The next day, on the Tuesday morning, Jesus and his disciples walk past the fig tree again. Only this time they see it's dead and withered. Jesus' judgment, his curse, had come true. In verse 21, Mark tells us, Peter remembered and said to Jesus, "Rabbi, look, the fig tree you cursed has withered." This is how Jesus replies, "Have faith in God." What's the answer? What is Jesus looking for? What was he looking for in the temple? What is he looking for in us? People who will believe in him. People who will take the risk and trust in him and follow him with their lives. Is that what Jesus would find if he looked at me? Or if he looked at you? That's all for today. Next time we're going to look at one of the traps that was laid for Jesus in Jerusalem and see how he deals with it. If you want to be notified when that episode comes out, do like our Facebook page, subscribe to our YouTube channel, or to the podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Hopefully, see you next time.